Reading every inch with Stalkovitch. I'm your host, Stalkovitch, and I'm going to read you some nice, dandy little information about the vehicle that you see playing right before your eyes. Well, I'm probably in a loading menu right about now, or I'm just starting up, but the M48 American main battle tank. Oh yeah, real nice early tier. Highest DPM of any main battle tank at its tier. Not too hard to to go wrong with that one.
When I go to crazy town, everything is upside down. Johnny Mako walking around, play the fiddle upside down. All the girlies want to do what the boys don't like to do. All the boys don't like to do what the girlies want to do.
So for the next 23 or 24 minutes, I'm going to read you a little bit of information about the M48. Great tank in the game, Armor Warfare. Alright, and I'm going to be taking plenty of breaks, so just to let you know. The M48 Patton is an American first generation main battle tank, MBT. Oh yeah, and all this information is off of Wikipedia. Link in the description. Introduced in February 1952, being designated as the 90mm gun tank M48. It was designed as a replacement for the M26 Pershing, M4 Sherman, M46, and M47 Patton tanks, and was the main battle tank of the U.S. Army and U.S. Marine Corps in the Vietnam War. Lost my spot. Nearly 12,000 M48s were built, mainly by Chrysler and American Locomotive Company from 1952 to 1961. The M48 Patton was the first U.S. medium gun tank with a four-man crew featuring a centerline driver's compartment and no bow machine gunner. As with nearly all new armored vehicles, it had a wide variety of suspension systems, cupola styles, powder packs, fenders, and other details among individual tanks. The early designs, up to the M48A2C, were powered by a gasoline engine. The M48A3 and A5 versions used diesel engines. However, the gasoline engine versions were still in use in the U.S. Army National Guard through 1968 through 1975 by many West German Army units. Numerous examples of the M48 saw combat use in various Arab-Israeli conflicts and the Vietnam War. Beginning in 1959, most American M48A1s and A2s were upgraded to the M48A3 model. The M48 Patton series saw widespread service with the United States and NATO until it was superseded by the M60 tank. It was widely exported. The tank's hull also developed a wide variety of experimental utility and support vehicles such as armored recovery vehicles and bridge layers. Some M48A5 models served into the mid-1980s with Army National Guard units, and M48A3s were used as targets for weapons and radar testing into the mid-1990s. Many night. Oh yeah, and another thing, if you're wondering who's doing all this music, this is Walt Solik, 1972, off the Polka Fun album. Many M48s remain in service in countries other than the US. Most of these have been modified in their firepower, mobility, and protection, upgraded to increase their combat effectiveness on the modern battlefield. As of 2015, Turkey is the largest operator with over 750 units in service. Taiwan is second with approximately 500 upgraded variants, and Greece is third with 390 in service. A little bit of history, it says over here. After the conclusion of World War II, the United States Ordnance Tank Automotive Command, OTAC, drastically slowed or canceled many tank development and design programs. On the 7th of November 1950, the Ordnance Technical Committee mandated a change in its nomenclature for tanks in the U.S. military. It was decided that weight designations light, medium, and heavy were no longer applicable due to changes in the way tanks were developed and employed on the battlefield, and the varying calibers of main guns now available. Thus, the caliber of the gun replaced its weight designation. For example, the M103 heavy tank was redesignated the 120mm gun tank M103, and the light tank M41 Walker Bulldog as the 76mm gun tank M41 Walker Bulldog. The M47 patent entered production in 1951 and was used by the United States and Army, Marine Corps, but ongoing technical and production problems kept it from serving in the Korean War. This forced the U.S. to field older tank models such as the M26 Pershing and M46 Patton. In response, the Army launched several design projects for a replacement of the M46 and M26. The United States entered a period of frenzied activity during the crisis atmosphere of the Korean War, when America seemed to lag behind the Soviet Union in terms of tank quality and quality. Let's see, it's been about 7 minutes so far. So at 10 minutes, I'll take a smoke break. Testing and development cycles occurred simultaneously with production to ensure speedy delivery of new tanks. Such rapid production caused problems, but the importance given to rapidly equipping combat units with new tanks preluded detailed testing and evaluation prior to its quantity production. Notable among these were the T-42, T-69, and T-48 projects, as well as continuing to pursue further improvements to the M47. Compromise was inevitable, but not always welcomed. As General Bruce C. Clark ironically observed, "We know exactly what we want. We want a fast, highly mobile, fully armored, lightweight vehicle. It must be able to swim, cross any terrain, and climb 30-degree hills. It must be air transportable. It must have a simple and but powerful engine requiring little or no maintenance. The operating range should be several hundred miles. We would also like to be invisible." Alright. I'd like to scroll down over here to where it says Vietnam War. M48 saw extensive action with the U.S. military during the Vietnam War. Over 600 Pattons would be deployed with U.S. forces during that war. The initial 40 M48s first landed with the Marine 1st and 3rd Tank Battalions in 1965, with the 5th Marine Tank Battalion later becoming a backup reinforcement unit. The remaining Pattons deployed to South Vietnam were in 3 U.S. battalions, namely the 177th Armored near the DMZ, 67 M48 A2Cs, 23 tanks supplied for U.S. Army Training Center at Fort Knox, and 44 from the Letterkenny Army Depot. Tanks were used by the 77th Armor from August 1968 to January 1969. These were later replaced with M48 A3s, the 169th Armor in the Central Highlands of Central South Vietnam, and the 234th Armor position near the Mekong Delta. Each battalion consisted of approximately 57 tanks. M48s were also used by armored cavalry squadrons in Vietnam until replaced by M551 Sheridan armored reconnaissance air vehicles that also exist in armored warfare as the Tier 5 light tank, 152mm gun. Derp, American Derp. It's got higher alpha damage than the Starship. The M68 too. In the divisional cavalry squadrons, M48 3 tanks remained in service with the 11th Armored Cavalry Regiment until the unit was withdrawn from the conflict. Some M48 variants, nicknamed Zippos or M67A1 flame tanks, were used by some U.S. Marine Corps units, but the U.S. Army no longer used them. From 1965 to 1968, 120 U.S. M48A3 tanks were written off. Alright, it's been 12 minutes. Time for a smoke break. I'll put up the volume.
Paragraf drugi. Nie wolno mniej wypić jak 6. Paragraf trzeci. Policji musi pijanego członka zawieźć do domu nie patrolką, tylko taksi. Taxi cab i musi tak być. Paragraf czwarty. Baby nie wolno nosić paznokciów, żeby nie drapały. A nasze klub pijackie będzie tak jak w raju. Kto chce zapisać się do klubu pijactwa, to piszcie do mnie na numer 000, oho i 00, ho. To będziecie mieli taki good time. Moje nazwisko to jest Wacek Wiercipięta. Tymczasem dziękuję za posłuchanie. Ludzie mówią, że orkiestra to jest nic takiego, że być dobrym muzykantem nie jest nic trudnego. Lecz jak powiem całą prawdę, to zmienicie zdanie, bo w orkiestrze...
Yeah, put on some Happy Louie. Polka time in the Stalkovitch household. The M48 Patent Tanks has the distinction of playing a unique role in an event that was destined to radically alter the conduct of armored warfare. When U.S. forces commenced redeployment operations, many of the M48 A3 patents were turned over to the Army of the Republic of Vietnam. In particular, creating the battalion-sized ARVN 20th Tank Regiment, which supplemented their M41 Walker Bulldog units. During the North Vietnamese People's Army of Vietnam Eastern Offensive in 1972, tank clashes between PAVN T-54 slash and PT-76 and ARVN M48 M41 units became commonplace. So they were fighting over there. On April 23rd, 1972, tankers of the 20th Tank Regiment were attacked by a PVBN infantry tank team, which was equipped with new 9M14M Milutka wire-guided anti-tank missiles. During this battle, one M48A3 tank and one M113 armored cavalry assault vehicle were destroyed, becoming the first losses to the Sagar missile. Losses that would echo on an even larger scale a year later during the Yom Kippur War in the Middle East in 1973. By May 2nd, the 20th Tank Regiment had lost all of their tanks to enemy fire. During the first month of the First Battle of Quang Tri, the ARVN M48 Pattons, 100 tanks, were lost. The M48s performed admirably in South Vietnam in the infantry support role. However, there were few actual tank versus tank battles. One was between the U.S. 169th Armor and PT-76 light amphibious tanks in the PAVN 202nd Armored Regiment of Ben Het Camp in March 1969. The M48 provided adequate protection for its crew from small arms, mines, and rocket-propelled grenades. South Vietnamese M48s and M41s fought in the 1975 Spring Offensive in several incidents. The ARVN successfully defeated PAVN T-34 and T-55 tanks and even slowed the North's offensive. However, due to the shortage of fuel and munitions faced by the South Vietnamese military because of the U.S. Congress placed ban on the further funding and supply of military equipment and logistics to the country, the American-made tanks soon ran out of ammunition and fuel and were quickly abandoned to the PAVN, which then put them in their service after the war ended in May 1975. In total, 250 of the ARVN M48A3s were destroyed and captured. And those captured, at least 30 were used briefly before being phased out and turned into war memorial displays all over Vietnam. War trophies. M48s, along with the Australian 20-pounder 84mm gun. Centurions of the 1st Armored Regiment were the only vehicles in use by the anti-communist side of the Vietnam War that could reasonably protect their crews from landmines. They were often used for mine sweeping operations along Highway 19 and the Central Highlands, a 2-lane paved road between An Khe and Pieco. Daily convoys moved both ways along Highway 19. These convoys were held up each morning while the road was swept for mines. At that time, mine sweeping was done by soldiers walking slowly over the dirt shoulders of the highway with handheld mine detectors. During this slow process, convoys would build up into a dangerously inviting target for the enemy, especially their guerrillas and partisans. As a result, a faster method was improved, Run, the Thunder Run, in which one M48 lined up on each side of the road with one track on the dirt shoulder and one track on the asphalt, and then with all guns firing, they raced to a designated position miles away. If the M48s made it without striking a mine, the road was clear, and the convoys could proceed. In most cases, the M48 that stuck on a landmine in these operations only lost a road wheel or two in the explosion. Seldom was there any hull damage that would be considered a catastrophic kill. Alright, got another 4 more minutes. I'm gonna take a quick smoke break here. This is Happy Louie, by the way. What? Holyoke, Massachusetts. I know, it's not English. It's history, it's polka history. I'm going to read briefly about the Middle East and the M48, and then I will cut it off here. M48s were also used with mixed results during the Six-Day War of 1967 on the Sinai battlefront. Israeli M48s upgunned with the then advanced 105mm L7 rifle tank gun were used with considerable success against the Egyptian IS-3s, T-54, T-55s, T-34-85s, and Su-100s supplied by the Soviet Union during the 1950s and 60s, such as during the Second Battle of Abu Ghali on the Sinai front. Israel lost 50 M48 tanks of 117, 39 M48 2Cs, and 11 M48 3s. However, on the West Bank war front, Jordan M48s, Jordan was also a user of an M48, as was Israel at the same time period, were often defeated by Israeli 105th Armed Centurions and World War II era upgraded M4 Shermans. M51s upgunned with French-built 105mm guns, not to be confused with the British L7 105mm tank gun. And that's about concludes it right about there. So, thank you very much for joining me tonight. And stay sober only if you have to. And we'll have a good time next time. What do you say about that? All right, cheers. Bye. Good night. Have a good one. See you next time. Bye.